Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Wealthy SAP Consultant podcast with your host, Anita Anello. I have a good friend of mine, Steve Sellers, here with me today, and he and I have known each other for the last couple of years. So, Steve, welcome. Thanks for being on the show today.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Steve, you want to share a little bit about your background? I know you're a superstar in working on high-level projects for big customers.
Let's not overinflate that too much. But anyway, I am as you can see, a very seasoned IT professional with a career spanning about 49 years at this point. And I have been working with Beckart Steel Wire Corporation, the Coca-Cola Company, and Shell Oil Canada before coming to Vision 33. And I've been working with SAP Business One since 2006, and that was a very good career move for me. And with Vision 33, I am a senior consultant. I work on implementations.
Yeah, awesome. So, Steve, you and I got to know each other on kind of a difficult project, what we call an escalation situation. And when we had a chance to meet, some of the characteristics of this project were pretty interesting because while I regularly deal with projects that are way over budget, way over schedule, usually on the verge of lawsuit, that's kind of like my sweet spot and being able to come in and insert myself in those projects and help the parties to move forward. This project in particular was probably one of the most extremes in terms of dollars over budget and years into the project. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, there were a number of political challenges. I would say most of the reason for the project going so long was political.
Yeah.
There were there were certain people inside the company that loved SAP Business One, and there were people who were opposed to it. And because they were opposed to it and the position that they held in the company, they were able to cause delays.
Mm.
So we had to work on that, and Anita was very instrumental in doing that because okay, I'm very technical. Okay, and technical skills have a limitation, and then they you need to put some politics in there. And Anita was very good at bringing that together, making that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, on this project in particular, they had the company had like a series of different presidents who had kind of come in and out. And that change
Hmm.
of the guard over and over again was challenging for the organization and for the project. And then we had a leader that came into the space whom brought me into the project, who was just an incredible champion in being able to figure out like we've been in this for a long time. It's the right solution. I went in and did an evaluation for them as an organization, evaluated SAP as a solution, evaluated the add-on products that they had, and then evaluated their teams. Because, as you kind of alluded to, one thing that's really interesting about an escalation project is there's typically somebody in there, like a person that's a little bit of like, they go anywhere from I'm not really for the project all the way to I've seen projects where they're like full blown, what we would call a saboteur. And so as we started uncovering some of these pieces in this project in particular, with the championship of the leader of the organization, what we found is like there were a couple of those folks that we would put in the category of saboteurs. And then we were able to actually bring it to the surface and address it in a healthy way and understand, sometimes it's different personality styles in projects that cause friction to be part of the escalation, but sometimes there's just people that are really just blocking everything that's going on. So let's talk about the blocks a little bit that were going on in this project that we know and love. By the way, for anybody who's listening, the client that we're referring to is doing an amazing job now. Their company is flourishing. They are absolutely set up now with this
Hmm.
solution to just really increase their profits, serve their customers at a phenomenal five-star level like they always do. And so we'll kind of skip ahead and share that part in the midst of the podcast. But let's talk about kind of like when the people element is a little bit of a challenge.
Okay, well, inside any project, you always have your enemies and you have your allies. Okay, this one did not really have a lot of enemies. It that group of people, we'll call it a group, was very small.
Mhm.
And then we had a lot of allies who wanted to move ahead with Business One. And one of the reasons they wanted to move ahead is their legacy system was antiquated. It it looked like some of the early DOS stuff that we saw and were so amazed at in 1984. And and so, but anyway, they're still doing things like that. And so they didn't have the dashboards, they didn't have the widgets, they didn't have the power of a HANA database. So those were the reasons we needed to move forward with this. There was no way to stay where they were.
Mhm.
I mean, it was going to break,
Yeah.
and they needed to move ahead with that. So um, Anita helped work out the political challenges. There, whenever you had people opposing this, we worked with those people to get around their opposition.
Mhm.
And some of that was, well, the main part of that overcame it was Anita helped working out the politics on it. I mean, that was the big thing. One thing I will say about this, okay, she alluded to the new president that came in. There had been some prior presidents who were not as committed as this new president was, and this team kind of came together. If you ever watch football, the you'll find that the team that wins the Super Bowl has a group of people in it who are the predominant stars.
Mm, yeah.
And if you and sometimes you'll see one of these people stranded in some obscure team, and he's a superstar on that team, but he's the only person.
Mm,
Okay, when we when this came together at the time Anita joined, okay, first of all, Anita came in. She is one of the stars. The new president came in. He was definitely another star, very committed to the success of this project. And then Vision 33 restructured our team, and
mhm.
we had new people in there pulling. And so the team coalesced into a winning team,
Yeah.
and that was what was required to make this thing move forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's so interesting. The people component, especially in an escalation project, is really what I find like one of the hardest parts to kind of deconstruct a little bit, untangle, unravel, and then get people back on the same page. And part of that, one of the things that I do is being able to understand and listen really well to different personality styles, different perspectives. And then also being able to almost like, I always kind of think in my mind, it's like almost a translator. So somebody over here is saying something on the other side, somebody's saying something else, and yet being able to help both parties see, hey, you're actually pulling in the same direction. You actually have the same goals. You're actually saying the
Mhm.
same things, but in different ways. And so helping people to kind of unlock in a safe environment, right? And a lot of these projects we know, like Steve, you and I have been doing this for a lot of years. You mentioned you've been in this for 49 years. I've been doing it for about 21 years. What
What a
I
baby.
find, what I find is that oftentimes, especially at our client organizations, there's a real fear that's in the mind of the
Mhm.
users that say, I'm not sure where my place is going to be as we go forward with this new project. They see the technology, they see what's possible. They hear what they can do, they hear about the efficiencies, and then sometimes that will actually cause people internally to get fearful. And when we get fearful, we don't act the same way, we don't think the same way, we don't speak the same way, and so that fear or frustration or worry that's inside of people kind of starts leaking out in different ways. And so, one of the things I love doing is just sitting with people and listening to what's going on, listening to where they're at, listening to what their perspective is. And then the way that my mind works is I can see how to I can help them shift their perspective so that they can see what else is possible, but then also help them communicate with what
Mhm.
they feel like is their opposition as their channel partner. But that's not true because the majority, vast majority of channel partners in the SAP ecosystem, They love their customers. They're for their customers. They have this expertise that their customers need and want help be able to make those projects successful. So that's to me where part of I call it kind of like an adventure. That's part of where the adventure happens,
Hmm.
able to unravel the people component and figure that out and help everybody kind of turn their shoulders the same way so that we can move forward together. Yeah.
Okay, you were very good at that. Also, I just want to point that out. We had, uh, I would say the salespeople, the order takers, were fearful of losing some functionality that was very important to them,
Yeah.
and the people in purchasing were also fearful of losing some functionality. And you were very good at, I think we were a very good team because you were good at helping allay these fears. And then on our side, a lot of that was handled with some very heavy technical aspects, some
Yeah.
very, very difficult SQL views and stored procedures, things like that. That was what brought it all together,
Yeah.
the final end product of a successful implementation.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that so interesting, Steve? We noticed that in all of our projects, all of our software projects, everybody wants the tech that's on the other side of the implementation. And let's just be clear, every implementation is hard. It's challenging because most of the time, if I'm a consultant and I go in and work on a project, I'm asking my client, do your full-time job and then by the way, do this other
Right.
part-time job of implementing a new software system that's going to be amazing. And we're kind of cheerleading and all that kind of stuff. But when you get down into it, it gets hard. But when we talk about the technical components of an escalation project, oftentimes there's kind of like two layers that I see, and maybe you tell me what you think about this. There's almost like two layers of the technical elements especially when it comes to an escalation project that kind of get in trouble. Number one, the technology is so new that the learning curve is big.
Hmm.
And so it's like a hockey stick, right? So the users are like, wait a minute, in their mind, they think, I can do this. This is amazing. I can use AI. I can use these HANA databases. I can use all this. I can have my data in real time. Are you kidding me? I haven't had my data in real time in like 20 years or anything like that, or never. But then all the other element of that is when we do heavy customizations, right? Because we all know if you're a consultant or a technical consultant or a programmer or software developer, any of those categories, you know in your mind you can make software do just about anything. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a great idea to do that,
Right.
right? So let's kind of break those down in terms of like the technology that's available to our customers on the other side. Like, what do you see are some of the challenges that we help customers overcome in these kinds of projects?
Okay. You are going to have to tailor Business One every time you go in. And it's kind of a Vision 33 practice to use the word tailor rather than customization.
Mm.
We do write customizations, but we want to tailor it first. Business One has given us a great set of tools where we can add columns to database tables. We can add tables to the database. These are things in earlier years that you would have to have the source code and you would have to make heavy modifications. And once you did that, you lost your capability to receive new version updates,
Mm.
or rather, they were seriously hindered because you had to upgrade your software and then you had to apply the modifications that you had made. Business One allows you to make changes to the database that facilitate what the customer needs, and it doesn't hurt the version updates.
Yeah.
So that was very important.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love the word tailoring because here's the reality, especially in the world of SaaS and software as a service and packaged implementations. On the one hand, we love that. Put a solution in based on solid business practices, run your business, modify your business towards the software. That is a perspective that's in the marketplace today. It's great and it's a great fit for a segment, but it's not necessarily always a great fit for everybody because sometimes we run into customers that'll openly say, Anita, Steve, my the reason that I'm successful in the marketplace is because I have this unique process that I go through. I have this unique business requirement that makes me better than my competitors. The way that the software is laid out doesn't work for me. And so we do need flexibility in software and in software at this level. And that's really product agnostic. You can apply that to any SAP product or any other product that's in this space. But it's important for all of us to understand that there's when we listen to our customers and hear what the needs really are, then that helps us determine, is it out of the box functionality that's going to work for them, and then the business needs to mold a little bit or shift a little
Hmm.
bit in a business process? Because that happens, that definitely happens, right? Sometimes the business process is, I don't know, somebody, Susie Bell 40 years ago designed that this is what the business process was going to be, and we realize today it's just not as
And it
efficient as we need the
and
business.
and it was designed in a silo.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Um,
And then we didn't have competitors, like maybe Amazon or Wayfair that can do business at a volume that, years ago we'd only dreamed about, right? Like the volume
yeah,
of business that's happening these days is really spectacular.
and
Um,
and this person you're talking about would typically have experience in a very limited number of companies and types of companies. My experience is from manufacturing
yeah.
with a steel wire company. I used to work for the Coca-Cola company. I used to work for Shell Oil in Canada. I've got international experience, and and it goes across production, sales, distribution, warehousing. Uh, I even have hospital experience. Not that I ever use it anywhere, but um, my experience base is very broad. Okay, when we go into a company, we'll quite often find that that person who designed this thing, and it's probably so cliche, but I love this cliche. Best practices. SAP made that up, but they didn't really make it up.
Yeah.
There is a practice that is best.
Hmm.
And so we sometimes see clients who are not following that, and
Hmm.
we have to guide them toward that. Uh, One of the aspects, okay, and this is where Anita really came in. A client can ask for something,
Yeah.
and sometimes the answer is no. Okay, you you're not going to get that, and you're not going to get it in that way.
Yeah.
Oh, but we've done it this way for 20 years. Well, it's now time to move into best practices.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the challenging areas when it comes to, for me, like coaching executives in that context is being able to help them understand where's the best place to put your money and your resources and your time and your people. When you come up with a big dream of, I want it to look like this, I want it to do this thing, and then we realize you probably are better suited. Most clients that I've worked with in this, especially, I mean, right at SAP, my team handled more than 10,000 implementations for Business One, and then I've done hundreds of escalation projects over the years. And it is a hard conversation to have. A friend of mine would always say, Anita, one of the things that you're so good at is you can deliver like difficult information with a smile on your face. And somehow people just say, okay, that's what you say. We got to do it because they know and trust, and they trust that I have their best interest at heart. Right? That's a
Right.
common theme that I get in feedback from a lot of my clients and my partners is, I trust that even though you're giving me hard information and difficult information that I might not want to hear, I know that you are, as an entrepreneur yourself, you know that you're for me and that you have my best interests at heart because you want to see me be successful. And so that's one of the things that I regularly hear back from clients in that
No,
regard.
that is your forte.
Yeah. So what other kinds of things do we think come up in these escalation projects or just difficult challenges and projects that you and I have run into over the years?
I think we've covered most of them. I mean, one I think people are almost always the most challenging. I mean, we certainly had a lot of technical challenges, but I enjoy a technical challenge.
Mhm.
I don't enjoy a people challenge. So, but anyway, we had, in any project, you have users who want to move forward, you have users who do not want to move forward, and you talked about the balance of their work. They now have two jobs.
Yeah.
They were working 40 hours a week before this thing came on, and now they need to work 50 or 60.
Mhm.
And that's a hard sell.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What's interesting about that, Steve, is that I was kind of thinking about the like a project against the calendar. So while it's not always easy, it is simple to install, follow a project plan, put a project to a calendar and say, in 3 months, I want to be live, Anita. In 3 months, I want to be live, Steve. And I can say, okay, but let's evaluate if that's really reasonable. Um, when we've all seen projects, especially when there's already money, a lot of money going out, and they're struggling of, I want to get live fast, but I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to be able to do that. And so that's also one of those areas where it's like a delicate balance of navigating the reality of maybe it's month-end closing process and the entire
right.
accounting team gets knocked out of the project for not just 3 days,
Several days.
but longer than that, right? Especially if they're coming off an older system that takes them a long time to process their month end. We've been in this arena of ERP projects. We've seen that older systems take a long time to close out their months and then their years and that kind of stuff. The other thing that I always think is, I guess maybe a little bit funny, is for so many years we had so many projects that had this almost like a self-imposed deadline. Like we have to be live by December 31st. So January 1st, we can start fresh. And I don't
Hmm.
know, my opinion on that is that seems a little bit arbitrary. I'm pleased to see more projects moving away from that. And really, what I love to do is be able to get into the business and assess like, what are your seasons like? What are your downtimes? When are you best able to put your team on the project? And because usually at the partner side, SAP consultants will move around and navigate and mold to whatever a client needs. But let's talk about the timing a little bit and being able to get these projects live, get them live in a relatively quick format, but then also recognizing that sometimes it just doesn't work out that way, right?
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, the clients always have a reason behind the deadline that they want. And sometimes it is arbitrary
Yeah.
in how they arrived at that date. Um, it makes a lot more sense to say, I want to be ready before a certain trade show,
Mhm.
or I want to be ready before a heavy season.
Mm,
Okay, Black Friday, which we just passed, is very important to a lot of clients.
right.
They need to be able to take orders on Black Friday.
Yeah.
And and then of course I have another client that Mardi Gras was an important season.
Okay.
It's Mardi Gras. It's crawfish season starts somewhere in there. I don't know exactly when,
Okay.
and they have to be ready. Their warehouse goes from empty to bursting,
Wow.
and then it goes back to empty. And
Okay.
they have to get ready for it. It's based on those seasons. There has to be a valid reason for that.
Mhm.
We don't have to go live on the first. Is just a little bit of a pain for the accounting team if we don't go live on the first.
Yeah.
Uh, but these are things. This goes back to the technical aspect of it. Uh, Anita has to. You have to help the client make a decision as to whether or not this date is that important, or could you write a week's worth of journal entries? Would it be the end of the world, or would
Right.
it just be an inconvenience?
Yeah.
And we are capable of pulling information out of the legacy systems and importing it into Business One. So um, balance it out. Make sure there's a real reason for
Yeah, that's so good. I love
it.
the way that your perspective is all based on having a conversation with the client based on what they need. Sometimes kind of pulling that apart a little bit or digging a little bit deeper and saying, okay, what is that need based on? Is it a perceived need or is it something based on a business practice? And then being able to talk through that with them. And then ultimately being able to honor the client and say, I hear you. If you say, Anita, this is the date, Steve, this is the date, then yes, we'll do whatever it takes to be able to get you to that date. So yeah, I hope as everybody's been listening today, both clients and partners alike, I hope you've been so encouraged and understand and maybe taken some nuggets away from this conversation. If you're in the middle of a project that is struggling right now, you can see that there's lots of different ways that we can help you uncover and untangle those struggles so be able to come out successful on the other side. I know for myself, for the hundreds of escalation projects I've worked on for more than 20 years, I've every single one of them, we've got those clients live and ready to go, one way or the other. So, yeah, but Steve, I just want to thank you so much and honor you for being here today. I so appreciate just your wealth of knowledge that you have and your insight that you have and just your fun candor that you always bring to every conversation.
All right. Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, everybody, we're going to wrap up today's episode. I'll make sure and put a link down below if you want to reach out for some help on your SAP project, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Okay.